In this video, you'll learn how to create a purchase order using a couple of different methods. We'll continue working in the Mountain Park Plaza project. Before you can set up a purchase order, you'll need to have the project and at least one approved prime contract set up with an approval date. That's because purchase orders always reference a prime contract, so you can see how your costs are stacking up to the prime contract budget. Keep in mind that Sage Construction Management doesn't have change management features for purchase orders, only for subcontracts, so any changes resulting in a change to purchase order quantities need to be entered as a new purchase order. We'll talk all about project changes in the next lesson. Also, you cannot use purchase orders to track retainage. You'll want to add the vendor's company and any contacts to the project directory, assign a TeamLink portal role, and make sure the contact has an email address on their contact profile. You can set these up on the fly as you enter the purchase order, but it's helpful to keep your project directory up to date, so you can process transactions most efficiently. From the project homepage, notice that I've added purchase orders to my favorites, so I can go straight to the list. But you'll also see them in the full list of links under Procurement. The Procurement Overview page shows a summary of all the different vendor documents. Next to Purchase Orders, click Actions, and notice that there are several ways to add purchase orders. In addition to adding manually or importing from Excel, you can create a copy of an existing purchase order on this or a different project. Add a purchase order from a change proposal request, a change order, an estimate or standalone RFP. Or you can view the list of companies in the project directory and initiate the PO that way. For this first one, let's select Add Manually. In the first section, the project is selected for you, and you'll need to select the prime contract to which this PO applies. You can also select a change order, which we'll discuss in the next lesson, or a work order, which we'll talk about in the lesson on documentation. Notice that the PO number is entered automatically, and just as with prime contract numbering, you can configure how POs are numbered. The PO type is another list that you can configure in settings, so the options you see here might look different than yours. Think about the types of purchase orders you want to report or summarize on. We'll select Materials as the type, but note that you don't have to use purchase order types. This is optional. Enter a subject for the PO, and normally you might leave the status as pending as you go through an approval process, but let's set this one to approved right off the bat. You can only enter bills against approved purchase orders, and the status date for the approved status needs to be before any bills or transactions that apply to it. Also, in Project Financials and Analytics, you'll only see approved purchase orders as part of your totals. Under Vendor Information, select the company and a billing contact. Under Issued and Authorized By, you can select employees from your own organization as contacts. In the default line item values, anything you select here is automatically entered for each purchase order item you add. You can change the values for specific items as needed. For the purchase order line items, you have several options for importing, and some of these get into areas we haven't covered yet. The first three options, import labor, equipment, or work items, let you pull in items from the cost database, which we'll cover in an upcoming lesson. The next options, estimate items and anticipated costs, are also topics we'll cover later. When you enter new lines by typing them, you can see that the default options selected above are automatically entered for each line. We'll add another line to this purchase order by importing from prime contract cost codes, but first let's click Save to see the purchase order overview. Scroll down to the PO items list and click Add. This time, select Import Job Cost Code, which lets you specify quantities for each cost code. Select the cost codes to include in the purchase order, and then select the resource type to include. The same resource will be applied to all items. If you want to add additional cost codes using a different resource, you'd click Add, and then make the additional selections. When you're done adding cost codes, click Add and close. This takes you to the purchase order overview page, and you can scroll down to see the individual items. We still need to add quantities and pricing, so click Edit and add the information. That's the process for editing the line items in the purchase order. If you need to modify the header information, click Edit at the top of the page. Notice that the overview page alerts you if any insurance records are missing for the vendor. And we talked about how to import insurance records for companies in the videos on contact management. If you have any documents from the vendor, such as a pricing quote, you can add that to linked documents. In this example, let's say that we have 2 RFPs from the vendor. Click Link Existing, All Other Records. Select RFP as the feature name, and select the documents to include. Click Link and close. And the documents are added to linked files. If you have your own purchase order forms uploaded as detail report templates, we recommend that you not use the Actions option to send it to the vendor. Instead, go to Reports, select your custom template, and then select Send PDF. In a later video, we'll cover how to create a bill directly from this purchase order. Back in the procurement overview, remember that another option for creating a purchase order is to import it from Microsoft Excel. As with other imports, the Help Center provides a template to use with this import, so let's check that out. Go to the Help Center. Click Getting Started, and then click the topic Import options from Microsoft Excel. Scroll down to Procurement, and click the link to Purchase Orders. This page shows you the instructions, a link to a sample template, and a table showing all the column names and descriptions. And also notice that the table provides a list of all possible columns for the purchase order header, as well as detail lines. The asterisks indicate the required columns. So let's talk about this spreadsheet. The project, prime contract, and any change orders need to be already set up, and the numbers in this spreadsheet need to match them exactly. The prime contract and change orders need to have been approved in order to reference them here. The supplier company must already have been added to the project directory, and the company name needs to match the contact management entry exactly. If you specify a contact name, that also needs to match the contact's display as name. If you leave the terms column blank, or if you enter terms that have not already been set up, the supplier's default terms set up in contact management will be used. Purchase order line items are included, so the header information repeats for each new detail line. Be sure to include the required header information in all rows for that PO. The item number should be incremented for each new line, starting at 1. You'll need to include the description, quantity and unit price, resource, and cost code. The cost code also needs to match an existing entry in the project's cost code list. The spreadsheet can contain more than one purchase order, and the purchase orders can reference different prime contracts, and even different projects, than the currently open one. Let's import this spreadsheet to create the purchase order. Now let's talk about another method for creating a purchase order. You can copy an existing PO. This is useful if you need to order repeated quantities of the same items, or you have similar purchase orders between projects. Click Actions, Copy PO, and let's select the purchase order we just created as the basis for the copy. Select the details for the purchase order you want to copy, and select the prime contract. Click Finish, and you're done. Let's send this purchase order to the vendor. First, go to Reports, Purchase Order Details, and you can select a template if you've added one in Settings. For the export option, we'll first save this as a PDF to linked files, and click OK. Check to see that the linked file has been added. And now we'll email it to the vendor. Go back to Reports, Purchase Order Detail, and for the export option, select Email PDF. This opens the email purchase order page, and you can modify the recipients and CC lists, and verify that the PDF will be included in linked files. Now, let's look at how this looks from the vendor's perspective. The vendor receives an email, and the PDF of the purchase order is included as an attachment to the email. They can click the link to view the purchase order in TeamLink portal. In this video, you learned how to create purchase orders.